right, we're getting things going here. Get the stream chat. Restream's doing a weird thing here, and I can't seem to turn on my chat to display, which is kind of annoying. I feel like there's... Move to top. Yeah, it's just not working. I don't know. Sorry, folks. That means I can't show the chat. The chat is indeed working, though. But I just wish I could kind of show it a little better. So I'll read stuff out. I'll try to do a better job of that. I apologize. Would be nice if things just worked, but that's not always the case. So welcome to the live stream. If you're new to the live streams, they're an AMA format. What's going on? My Instagram's not working either. Okay, nothing's gonna work today. Live streams are an AMA format though, so you can jump in, ask questions. I always have a topic that I'll be going over. So if you are available on Substack down here, hello Substack folks. I still don't have any support for like a month now from Substack on getting their live streaming working on the computer. I'll try to watch in the chat. Otherwise, Substack folks, if you want a better experience, I would just recommend going to YouTube. It's a Dev Leader podcast. Or if you're on LinkedIn, you can probably see that I'm like doing a LinkedIn Live as well on Twitter. Try to do it everywhere. But the topic today is going to be about building software outside of work. And this is a topic from Code Commute. It's a thing that comes up a lot too. Hey, Devin. Again, can't see the chat. Devin says howdy. Wish this would work. But yeah, a topic that comes up a lot. And I would say different people have different perspectives on this. I think that when people talk about this, it can kind of feel, I don't know, like polarizing, right? Some people will say like, you know, they have this expectation that people have to be, if you want to be a good software developer, you have to be spending time outside of work, you know, coding. And then I will talk about things from the perspective of like, you know, if you're trying to get into the industry, that I think that if you need more practice and more experience, like that's a good opportunity to do it. But there's not like, I don't want to go into this conversation saying like, this is the right answer, right? Like you need to be doing this or you should never do this. And it's completely black and white sort of thing. Because I don't think that's fair. I don't think that's accurate. And I don't think that's the case for a lot of things we do in life. But what I did want this conversation to be about is why you might want to consider it if you're able to. Okay, so that's kind of the framing. Give me 1 sec. I'm just positioning this so that I have a reference to go by. And this is going to be the day where nothing technical works. Come on, Windows. Please dock the window. Thank you. I got to talk to someone about that. Yeah, the newsletter that I publish on the weekend has the topic for today, so I'm just going to put that in the chat. It's at weekly.devleader.ca. Substack folks, you're already there. And, you know, if you're on a different platform, it's at weekly.devleader.ca. The latest one is called Building Software Outside of Work, which is coincidentally the title of this live stream. And I always remind folks, like, the newsletter is, if you don't want email, like, don't subscribe. That's totally cool. I'm not here to push that. But if you like the live streams, right? If you're watching this one, you're hanging out, and you want to come to the next one or one in the future, if you're interested in knowing the topic, it's usually what I end up sharing in the newsletter, so you can get a preview. Okay. So building software outside of your working hours, I think that primarily, like I have a few different angles for the things I want to talk about today, but to start, I think the most important part is kind of getting your own why. And that kind of seems, I don't know, maybe woo-woo, like hand wavy, like, okay, well, what does that mean, Nick? I talk about this a lot on Code Commute. I talk about this a lot, you know, for Dev Leader in general, but I think a lot of things we do, we need to make conscious decisions about them. And so the reason I say that, and maybe it's very obvious, but right, just to elaborate, is that there's so much information, whether that's online, on social media, from your colleagues, people you've worked with, whatever. There's so much information. Sometimes it's very conflicting. And this isn't unique to software engineering, right? I've given examples before, like in the fitness industry, like, you know, for dieting and what works and what doesn't. Like, no, keto's the best diet. No, intermittent fasting. No, you need to be vegetarian. No, you need to be paleo. Like, and then you'll have examples of each of these individual, like carnivore diet. You'll have individuals, all these examples where like it works, and then it doesn't for you, or it doesn't for someone else, and it's because it's not just like one size fits all, one solution for everything. And so let me ban this person. Ryan, I'll come to your question in just a moment. So the framing that I want to have with all this kind of stuff is like, I think if you come up with your reason why, then you can use that to guide you. Okay, so I'm not going to use this conversation to convince you or try to convince you, because I don't think that's relevant or necessary, that you need to be going to build stuff outside of work. So if you're like, I don't have time, or whatever other excuse that you might have for yourself, whatever, that's great. I'm not here to convince you otherwise. I'm just here to give you some examples. And I think if you pick why and you understand why for yourself, then that will direct what kind of software you plan to build and how you might approach that. Okay. Ryan is asking in the chat, which no one can see because restream. He says, I'm not sure if you're going to cover it or not, but I would be curious how to avoid overlapping your work software building versus your outside of work software building. Yeah. That's a great question. And Devin has responded on YouTube saying, my last job, I got mad about them not letting me work on a project, so I built it on my own time and put it on a GitHub. My coworker found it. We ended up using it anyway. Nice. That's awesome. Yes, I think I would be curious to how to avoid overlapping your work software building versus your outside of work software building. Yeah, it's a good question because, like, I didn't write about it, but I think it's a good thing to consider in that. Okay, a couple different ideas come to mind here. So if you're interested in the stuff that you're doing at work, like let's use Devin's example, right? If Devin, in his example, he's saying there's a project he wanted to work on, so he built it on his own, put it on GitHub, and then they ended up using it. If that was something that was maybe more generic, right? Or maybe it was for a specific problem, but that's not like the company's like core thing that they're doing. I'm just going to make up an example, right? So Devin is building software for, I'm literally making this up, for medical purposes, okay? And so the company has a very medical focused mission, and at some point Devin's like, I really want to make a PDF rendering library. Again, this is as random as I can make it. If they were like, no, we're not doing that, and Devin's like, I really want to do it, so I'm going to go build it on my own. If like a PDF rendering library is so completely outside the realm of like what the business is doing, probably fine, right? Go build stuff. Now, your employment contract might have some wild stuff in it, and they might say, I don't know how they ever would enforce this, but not for me to figure out. Hey, anything you're building while working for us, like we have rights to it or something like that. You'll want to figure that out. But so you got to navigate that. And if you're not sure, like go ask. Okay, ask your manager. If someone came to me at work and said, hey, I'm doing this, like, is there an issue? I actually don't know a definitive answer. Like if I can sign off, I can give them what I feel like is a pretty good guess. Like, unless you're building routing technology, you're probably okay. But if I needed to, I would have to probably go ask someone in HR and get that figured out. And I would expect any manager that doesn't have sort of the authority or the exact answer to go follow up on that. Ryan's also adding, and overlapping as in what you're coding, building in your job overlaps or conflicts with software you are wanting to build outside of work, conflict of interest kind of thing. Yeah. Okay. So I think I'm answering what Ryan's kind of after this. So I think if you don't know, like ask, right? There should be some, I mean, there's a million different examples we could go come up together with as a group, right? Like if I were at Microsoft building Microsoft Word and I was like, I want to go build a video game for, I don't know, the Switch, Nintendo Switch, like it's probably not remotely close to overlapping, right? And I think if you're getting in the territory where you're like, I don't know, like even the example that Devin gave, I don't know what he built. And I would say, like, I think Devin has pretty good judgment, but if he was concerned and was like, I don't know if this is too close, then he should ask, right? Devin knows that. And really, like, I think once you get an answer like that, you kind of have to respect it, unless you want to potentially risk what that looks like with your workplace. I think that there's subcategories of stuff. So the example I was giving with like doing a PDF rendering thing, there might be elements of what you're working on, like in the domain that you're working in, where you are like, hey, we need this feature built, or we need a library to do whatever. It might be really interesting to you, and it might literally just not be a core business priority. And so if it was something you wanted to go build because you're curious, I think that's fine. Again, ask for clarity. I think the other thing to look at here too is like, if you were building stuff that was literally completely work related, okay? So in my example, like I work on the routing plane for Microsoft 365. If someone on their own time wanted to go build routing technology and do it on their work computer, like after hours on their work computer to go learn about it, and it's not being published and they're not like putting it outside of work, like, I mean, that's fine. I'm not going to encourage someone to go do that because I don't necessarily want them, like, to me, that's too close to work. Not from a privacy compliance kind of thing, more like, are you going to burn yourself out from just like literally doing more work things or, work adjacent things? So I would try to balance that out with people. But Ryan, let me know if that answers your question. I think it's a really good one and people should be aware of that. Mohammed, I am not, there's a question from Mohammed, says, what language are you explaining about? I'm not currently talking about any specific languages. The question from Ryan, which unfortunately I can't show on the screen because my streaming tools aren't working properly. The question was about if you are working on side projects, how do you kind of avoid conflict of interest with work? Okay, so my example, like, I've had a couple, right? When I joined Microsoft, I was building something called Meal Coach at the time, outside of work. And so at some places they'll say, like, when you're signing your employment agreement, it's like a moonlighting clause kind of thing. And so they might ask, like, hey, what are you currently working on? And that way you can kind of separate, or if someone needs to figure out like how to navigate something from the start, then you can. And otherwise, like, I work on Brand Ghost now, which is completely unrelated to what I do at work or Microsoft products. I do content creation and stuff like that. So just as an example, content creation itself is kind of like a side project, right? So I need to make sure that if I'm talking about work things, I'm making them very generic, right? What I don't do is I don't go on video and I say, like, someone, like, this specific person from my team or my specific colleague does this, and whatever, make it awkward. Exceptions are for, like, sometimes I'll praise people that I've worked with because I think there's a interesting scenario to talk about, but it's not work specific. Like, the fact that it's at work is a detail that can be omitted completely. So hope that helps. To keep moving along here, so we want to start with the why. We want to figure out our own motivation, because if you're doing things just because other people tell you, like, hey, like, you need to be building stuff outside of work, or you need to build web applications, or you need to go use Rust, like, you don't need to do anything, right? Like, you don't need to. Now, what are your goals? Figure out your why and then move in that direction, okay? So The buckets that I've kind of categorized, I have like 4 major buckets that I group things into. First one is like skilling up in an area that you're not really focused on at work. Okay, so you're doing web development at work in the front end, and you're not getting an opportunity to work in back end stuff, or you're not getting an opportunity to do mobile development because you're curious about that, or you name it, right? You're not getting that opportunity. Okay, like if that's an area that you want to skill up in, whatever your motivation is, then go build stuff outside of work to do that, right? You can kind of create your own learning and experience from doing that. So that's bucket number 1. Bucket number 2, I would say, is especially common with more junior developers, and it's because people like me and others will push this a lot, but that's like resume and portfolio experience. So this may resonate with some of you that are watching live or watching the recording, but if you are new to the industry or trying to break into the industry, if you do not have, professional work experience, if you don't have that and you're like, okay, well, I have to compete with these other people applying for the same jobs and they do have some work experience. One thing you can do is create your own experience. And it's not the exact same as professional working experience, but you can go work on projects outside of work to go create that experience for yourself, right? You've never worked in C# and you've never used Postgres and you've never seen ASP.NET Core. Okay, like if you want to be able to showcase that on a resume because you don't have the professional experience for it, build things with it, practice it, learn it, right? Then you can start building a portfolio, and kind of your goal here is to enhance your resume for things to show. Hey, Baron Bites, good to see you back. Welcome, welcome. Appreciate you being here. The third bucket, this I think sometimes happens for new developers. Maybe for, I don't want to call it the wrong motivation, but it's like entrepreneurship, right? So I think sometimes people are like, maybe they are entrepreneurial, and then they go, I want to go build something. I think we're seeing a lot more of this with AI, where it's like, I don't work in the developer space, but I would really love to see this app idea come to life, whatever that is. So they find themselves kind of moving in that direction. You might have folks that are more senior, right? They've been building stuff for a long time. And maybe they started off with some of these hobby projects. Maybe it was to enhance their resume at one point, or something they were just curious about. And then it ends up turning into like, hey, maybe I can monetize this. Maybe there's a business here. So that might be another reason that people go in this direction. And the fourth bucket I have is really around, I don't know. I don't have stats on this to know, but like, you do it for fun. And so it's kind of interesting because I think that if I reflect on my own experience, I think I got a little bit lucky that some of this for me fell into the fourth category, like building stuff for fun. I'm a pretty nerdy introverted guy, and I can remember being younger and being like, I like writing code. Like, it's just fun. I feel like I'm building Lego with, like bricks of any shape and unlimited count of them. So I really just enjoy doing it. And then over time, what's really cool about that fourth bucket of just building stuff for fun is that you go, wait a second, like, I've been building this, and like, maybe I need to enhance my resume. This could be a cool portfolio project. Or I'm building thing X for fun, and like, you know what? I haven't had an opportunity to go learn about mobile development. Maybe there's this thing related that I can go build, and you kind of can touch the other buckets that I was talking about, and it feels easier. It feels easier because you're just doing it for fun in the first place. Sometimes your for fun ideas can turn into businesses as well. Baron Bites, do you still do resume reviews? Yes, I do. I have not been keeping up. I think I have a couple that have been sent in, and I have to do them. So yeah, send it in. Go. What's the YouTube channel? Path to Tech. Let me just link it in here. sorry, you can't see Baron Bites is asking, do you still do resume reviews? I started a back-end internship last week. By the way, congrats. I'd like to volunteer as tribute towards April. Cool. It's this. I think that should go to YouTube, but it's Dev Leader Path to Tech. If you go there in one of the videos, I explain how to submit it. If you watch like 60 seconds of a video, you'll see. So check it out and send it in there, and I will try to get to it. I've just definitely been slacking on the resume review videos because I've been doing other stuff. So please do submit. I will try my best to get to it. Okay, so we went over a handful of like different reasons or motivators why people might want to consider building stuff outside of work. And again, my goal with it's not to tell you like, therefore go do it. You have to. Not for me to decide. If that aligns with you, then by all means investigate. But the other thing I wanted to talk about regarding this is like, I didn't like coin the term, but like activation energy. And I think people can see this with different types of tasks. Okay, so again, it's not unique to software engineering, but we're talking about like doing extra stuff. And like when you have to do extra stuff, if you're not in that fourth bucket where it's for fun, I think if you're like me, extra stuff is like, oh, I don't really want to do that. And you'll procrastinate and you'll put it off. And I think that this is especially challenging for folks that they're trying, like they know that they want more experience when they're applying to jobs. Maybe someone who's been laid off, who's like, I need to skill up. Maybe if you like in the layoff scenario, it might be a little bit easier because there's a forcing function versus, maybe someone who's interested in switching jobs, but they're currently employed. It's like, if there's a little bit more like comfort, it's harder to like make yourself go do something, I find at least. So I'm going to talk about activation energy here. And not only is there like activation energy to just get yourself started, right? That's the whole idea of activation energy, is how much effort is going to go in so that you can even begin, right? So this is a thing. If you're like me, you procrastinate a lot. And then finally, like, you get the activation energy, it happens, and you're like, kind of think to yourself, like, why didn't I start this sooner? Like, it's really not that bad once you're going. But I think when we talk about like maintaining that activation energy, you've activated, right? You've started the project. How do you keep it going? And there's a pattern that I've noticed, like in my own learning or when I talk to some other people, and it's that if you understand like the sort of basic idea behind this activation energy idea, where you'll procrastinate and like you just want to kind of get yourself started and then it makes it easier. If you understand that and you've experienced that, the other thing we don't want to have happen is that we get overwhelmed, because then what happens is you've kind of hit this wall after sustaining that activation energy. Now you hit this wall and you're like, okay, like for me to go progress in any one of these directions, like now you feel this activation energy again, like you get stuck and you're like, I don't know, like I can't move left because I don't understand this about Postgres, and like it's really frustrating. And like I can't go straight ahead because like there's this weird C# thing that I don't really understand, and I can't turn to the right because like I'm deploying to Azure and like I really don't get Azure. And then I can't like go down, like I'm just picking random directions, right? But you keep getting stuck in every direction, and then it's suddenly like it just feels overwhelming. So you're like, well, this project's kind of screwed then. I can't make any progress. Now, for some people, you can kind of push through and you end up making progress in one of those things and then kind of unblock yourself and keep going. But my point here is that if you want to try and minimize that, my recommendation to you is to not try and do everything completely new all the time for your side projects. Okay, so if you're someone who is very junior, it's likely that any side project you do is going to have a bunch of new things. So like it's true, you're going to feel that activation energy like probably more than other groups of people because like everything's kind of new. It's just more effort for you to kind of to do things. So that's okay. Right? So I get it. I hear you. Um if you can, that's why doing smaller projects are handy to kind of build some momentum. If you are someone that is more senior and you're like, well, I want to learn, I'm just going to make something up, right? Like I want to go learn Postgres. Okay, well, if you know Java and you know I don't know, like Microsoft SQL Server, and you want to go learn Postgres, what I wouldn't recommend is you go, okay, well, I'll do a new app and like I'll pick Postgres because that's the thing I want to learn about. And then I'm going to go pick, I don't know, I don't know Rust yet either. So like I might as well like pick up Rust at the same time. And then like I've never deployed to AWS, just Azure. So let me go deploy this to AWS. And then, like, and then you start adding in all these things that you've just never done. It might seem like on the surface, like, hey, look, I'm going to learn all these things at once. And I don't know, you might be the kind of person that can. I'm certainly not. And it's for this reason I just explained, which is when you get stuck on any of these paths, it's like you don't have any momentum to kind of carry you through. Okay, so my recommendation is that you try to fix as many variables as possible and then have only one or two kind of new things that you're going to try to learn about. That way, you can keep the momentum because, like, for me, if I wanted to go learn Postgres in this example I'm making up, if I wanted to learn about Postgres, I'm like, I know C# very well. Like, I should probably keep C# in the mix and then build something in C# that connects to Postgres. And then maybe it's still ASP.NET Core because I know that pretty well. But maybe I could do like, I don't know as much with Blazor, and that's close to ASP.NET Core, like obviously tons of overlap there. So maybe I could do C#, Blazor, and Postgres, right? But I'm not going to go completely off the rails and pick all new variables for it because it's going to be a pain in the butt. That's been my experience. That's what I would recommend to people is fix as many variables as possible. The other thing that I want to mention around activation energy is like, we did a stream, I feel like it's probably like a year ago now. I've definitely talked about this before, but it's worth re-mentioning. I think that if you can find projects, if you have convinced yourself, okay, I'm going to go, spend some time building stuff outside of work. If you can find stuff that you're genuinely interested in, I think it makes things so much easier. Okay. And for those of you that like can remember, like, if you depending on your age and stuff, if you've gone to high school, if you went to college or university or whatever, can you remember taking courses or having classes where there were projects and you were like, this project sucks. Like, I have no interest in whatever this is. Like, it could have been, for me, it could have been something, using C#, which I like, but I'm like, this project is stupid. I don't like it. I'm not interested. For me, that would really cause me to, again, procrastinate. I'm not going to be engaged with it. If I encounter a problem while doing it, instead of being like interested and excited to go solve the problem, I'm like, no, I'm frustrated. Like, I don't want to be doing this. Again, things I'm talking about here might be a lot of like kind of me problems, but I think that other people go through this kind of stuff because I have talked to people where this has resonated. So, finding ways to align your projects with your interests are very helpful. So for me, this worked really well early on because I I still love video games, but playing video games as a kid and then being like, cool, like I want to try and make my own video game. So you realize there's a lot going on in video games very quickly, but it made it fun, right? I was hitting problems all the time. I have no idea what I'm doing when I'm starting out. But it was really fun and exciting. So even when I ran into issues, I wasn't like, well, guess I'll never program again. I hate this. It was like, no, like how do I find the answer to this? Like, this is Like, sure, it's frustrating in the moment, but like I'm excited to find the answer. What's another? I was just thinking about something as I was blabbing away there, but I was filming YouTube videos earlier today, and I was filming a video on some of the work that I was doing over the weekend for. I have this. What's a good way to explain this for non.net people? I have a dependency injection NuGet package. It's a a library that you can download, and it's nothing special. It uses reflection to go find plugins in assemblies. I use it. It's just based on patterns that I've been using for a long time, so I made it a package. And this weekend, we had a long weekend here in the US. And so this weekend, I spent some time with Copilot and Claude. And I said, it's time to make this thing go from reflection to source generation. I'm going to do it. And I was thinking about this while I recorded the YouTube video, that like I had some frustrating points on the weekend where like the way some of the AI had like refactored the code and like some of the architecture, I remember being like, oh, like I don't like that. And I'm sitting there looking at the code being like, I don't have a good solution to this. But instead of being like, well, screw it, like, this is a dumb project anyway, like AI is dumb and everything's dumb, instead of like being totally demotivated that way, it's a project that I am excited about. I find that kind of stuff super interesting. I wanted to learn about source generators. I wanted to see this kind of thing come together. So it was really cool to try and think through these problems instead of it being a big demotivator. So my recommendation is if you're building stuff and you're trying to learn, especially, try to align it with things that you're interested in. You might find it a little bit easier to stick with if there's some external motivators coming in. So for example, if you have a project and it's generating money for you, like you might be able to kind of put up with a bit more crap because you're like, I got to do this because it's making money. That could be a good reason, but you need to find your reasons. Those are some for me. So I wrote down a couple notes in the newsletter to say like, I gave you an example of games as interest, but like, if you're into fitness, like could you make a calorie counting app or an exercise list app? If you're into cooking, what about like a recipe app or something? It doesn't have to be something that like no one's ever done before. Just build stuff, right? Music, like can you do something that's going to go look up artist information or discography, or maybe you want to track like where your favorite bands are touring. I don't know, like there's a million things that you could go build in these categories, but try to align them to your interests. I think it'll help. Baron Byte says, at what scale do you think optimizing SQL queries matter? I'm tasked with using Postgres for the first time. Not sure if optimizing would matter for under 1,000 users. Advice. Yeah, I mean, like, what are the requirements, right? I think that's what it comes down to. I'll give you an idea, right? So, like, if you're tasked for optimizing, you're tasked to work with Postgres, and let's say there are 1,000 users. If these are 1,000 paying customers, and if you're thinking about the latency, right, because the query takes a long time, if how that's fitting in to your waterfall of latencies, if that means that your query is the thing that's taking, I'm going to make up numbers, it's taking 4 seconds to run this query, and as a result, like the user experience in a web app or something is very bad, like I would say the number of users isn't the factor here, right? They're paying users. Like if I had one paying user and it was a really terrible experience, I would probably try to make that better for them. If your company, I'm just going to give you a different flavor of this. If your company had, I don't know, 10 million users and you're talking about a new prototype thing that like people are betaing and they're not even paying money for it, and there's 1,000 users and it's a little slow for latency, like, yeah, maybe you don't care. But we have to talk about business requirements if we're working at places, right? So you as an engineer, you might go, and this varies from person to person, right? You might say like, I really care if if I haven't spent time optimizing this. Like, personally, I really care. Others might go, I don't care at all. Like, it gets the right data. I don't care how long it takes. And like, those are sort of the wrong answers, because they're not addressing the real question, which is like, what does the business need to deliver for the users? Yeah. Devin says measure first, optimize second, or don't. Yeah. Right. So, and then, to add more context into Devin's comment, measure first, optimize second, or don't. It's like, you need to understand, and sorry, Baron, when I say you need to understand, I'm not trying to, I hope you understand what I'm saying. It's not to like point at you. This is a very general statement. As developers, we need to understand what the functional and non-functional requirements are for our product. And if you don't know and no one's told you, it's a really good conversation to have with a team, right? Including a product owner on that. Because the reality is, again, if the latency for your query, say the query takes 10 seconds, okay? And like, that seems pretty crappy, because you're like, oh man, I know if we had some indices on here, we could make it go faster, and like, we don't even have those. But like, is that a 10-second query on a workflow that takes 3 hours to run, and it's run once? Maybe it doesn't matter, but it's not for me to say, right? That is a question that you should go figure out, sort of in terms of the value to the business, because it will change. This is why context, there's Derek Co. Martin from Code Opinion. Anytime I'm about to say context is king, like, I have to shout him out for it. He does such a good job. For folks, if you're watching my stuff, if you don't know who Derek Co. Martin is, please go look up Derek. He's like, his handle is Code Opinion, but Derek does such a good job explaining why, like, when people talk in absolutes, or like it's always, one way or another, he does such a good job explaining, like, situationally why it may or may not apply. And it's like, you can change the context and it will dramatically change what sort of the air quotes right answer is. So I do really recommend, kind of take the context into account. Baron Byte says, I think I understand what Devin wrote. See if there's a problem, measure before spending time refactoring for something, only optimize if confirmed to be a problem. Exactly. And then, whether or not it's a problem is going to be based on, the expectations, the requirements of your product or your service or whatever. And that's going to be very contextual. So I think it's a really, really good question. But like, the way that we answer questions like this ends up being like, this is why we joke in software engineering, like, oh, it depends, because it does. It depends on many things though. And I don't want to leave it at it depends. I want to give you examples and kind of walk through why it depends and what it depends on. So Baron Bytes, I hope that helps answer. Please feel, obviously, you know how to use the chat. Keep asking if it's if you want more clarity or a different view on it. But and thanks, Devin, for your comment as well. Okay, so you're thinking about building stuff outside of work, and it's not an activation energy problem for you. You're like, I am ready. I got a million ideas. You're over ready, right? You got ideas oozing out of your fingertips. You are ready to go, code it yourself, to go learn about, jump into Claude Code or Copilot or whatever you want to use. Cursor, there's other things. You're ready, right? The ideas can't be contained in your fingertips any longer. You have to tell the LLMs what you're trying to build. But where do you start? You got so many ideas. What's going to be the right one? What's going to be the best one for your resume? What's going to be the best business idea? What's going to be the best learning opportunity? You have a million ideas. Where do you start? And so my oversimplified answer here is that, like, you need to just pick one. I don't care if you end up working on multiple, but if you're not starting because you have multiple ideas and you're trying to pick the best, there isn't a best. They're all the best and all the worst, right? Like, they're all equal. It's not necessarily true. Some may or may not be better than others, but what I want you to take away from this is like doing nothing is the worst of the options that you have. So instead of being paralyzed, not doing anything, I highly recommend you get started on at least something, right? Make sure that it's aligned with some of the goals you were setting. Not because, Nick said you need something for your resume. You're like, I don't care about my resume. I want to go learn Erlang. Like, great, go learn Erlang. That's your goal. That's cool. There's nothing wrong with Erlang. If that's your goal, like, stick to it. Don't just do it because someone said. And then if you're not able to start because you're trying to pick the best option, the more time you spend doing nothing, trying to debate what's the best, the less time you've spent actually building things. So I've seen this kind of pattern come up so often, and that's why I have to talk about it, right? It's like the most common version of this that I see is that I feel like, and maybe it's for a good reason, changing over the past year or so, but the most common thing that I see or that I get asked or have been asked in the past is like, hey, I'm just getting started. Like, what programming language should I use? And I've made like LinkedIn posts and stuff on this and written blogs and stuff on it. Like, there isn't a best, right? People can make arguments all they want about like, this one's the most performant, or there's this or there's that. And Baron Bay says paralysis by analysis, right? It's all it is. There isn't a best. Programming languages are different tools for different things, right? Like I personally stick to C# a lot these days, not because I'm like in my head, oh, C# is the best language that's ever been created. There is no fault. Everyone should use C# and buy my courses because it's just the best. Like, that's not it. I like C#, but for a lot of the things I'm doing, it makes sense for me to use C#. For example, if I am trying to build Brand Ghost on the side and it's a business, it makes sense for me to use something that I can build with very effectively. It also happens to be a very good general purpose language. It has enough performance, it has enough community support, it's modern, and I can program in it effectively. Seems like a pretty good reason for me to use it. Someone might come along and say, but Rust. Rust would be the safest, because we're saying that now. Rust is the safest, and it's faster based on these benchmarks for the app you haven't even built yet, but it's faster. So you should go build your business using Rust. And I would say that's great, but I would actually like to make sure that I can release software and get some paying users, because if I need to go learn Rust from scratch and try to build things at the same rate that I'm able to with C#, it's not going to fly. But that's the context for some of the goals I have. Many of the goals I have end up working out pretty well to use C#. Now, if I wanted to set a goal for myself to go learn a new tech stack or to program on a different platform, or as a goal to go learn a different language, then of course I should go explore something outside of C#, of course. But that has not been a goal for me for most of the time. So your goals will change the different variables that you want to focus on. Yeah. Devin says, you can't see his message because the chat's not showing unless you're on YouTube, but Devin says, is this a bad forum to say that you shouldn't pick what opinionated streamers like to talk about? No, it's the perfect forum for it. So thank you. I know Devin's joking, but it's also a true statement, right? It's very true. Like, when you're seeing stuff on social media, including people streaming and stuff like that, you get a very like narrow view of what's being represented, right? It's not unique to software engineering. It's been a big theme on this stream so far, right? Like, this is why I was saying, I like using fitness examples a lot because, the gym's been a big part of my life, but I think we see it's so much more visible on social media, right? It's like most people can think in their head like, well, someone who goes to the gym a lot, I have a visual in my head of what they look like. It's like, you don't, because what you have a visual of in your head is like something that social media has been kind of feeding to us over and over and over. And it's like, you're actually seeing people that are like the top end of the people that go to the gym a lot. It's the same thing with beauty standards and all these other things, right? People's standard of living. Like, if you were an average person, you're probably not the person going, oh, like, let me show off my lifestyle. It's the people that are at the higher end that are trying to show it off. Like, we get a very skewed view of all of these things from social media. It's just sort of how it is. And that's the same thing when you have people, that are popular on social media talking about programming or software engineering topics. By like most measures, I am not a popular person on the internet for this kind of stuff. Been trying hard to make progress towards that, but if one day I am a very popular YouTuber or content creator, I really want to make sure that I can say, hey, there are things that I like. I like C#. I happen to like the Microsoft tech stack long before working at Microsoft. It has nothing to do with the fact I work at Microsoft, actually. And like, I don't want people to think that that is the best thing. It's the thing that I happen to like because it solves most of my issues and I'm comfortable with it. Doesn't make it the best. Right? So that's something I want to make sure kind of comes through in all my content. So Devin, I think I very much welcome that. Cool. What else we got on here? I think, yeah, it's kind of like a sign off from the article, but like, it's just to kind of bring it back to like, whatever your goal is that you're setting for building software outside of work, like match what you're doing to that goal. Okay. That's what I want to leave you with on this part of the topic is match what you're doing to your goal. Because what can happen along the way, especially if you're dabbling, is like, I think a lot of people go, oh, I want to monetize this. I need to get users, right? This is one of the most common things I see for resume projects is like people are saying, well, this app that I'm building, like, I don't have paying users and like, or I don't have a user base. And like, that means it's not a good project because employers aren't going to care that I don't have like 1,000 monthly active users. And I'm like, hi, like I know I'm only one person, but as a hiring manager, and I've done it for 13 years, I have never cared. I've never cared how many users your app has. I'm not hiring you for your app's users. I don't care. I think it's great for you. I'm very proud of you for getting users. That's awesome. But I do not care in terms of hiring you for that. Excellent for you. If you're proud of that, I want to be proud of you as well. But it's the wrong thing for me. It's not a penalty. I just don't care. Right? So if you're going, oh, I need to build a resume portfolio, right? I need the experience for my resume. I want to build a portfolio for this stuff. And then you go, oh, I need to go get users. I'm like, unless you want to talk through resume experience about how you were doing like user requirements gathering and going back and forth, and like you want to talk about that stuff, I think that's great. You probably need some users. You don't need tons, but that would let you practice that. But like, what is your goal? Right? The same thing can happen where people are like, I'm not making money from it. So now you're learning maybe let's take the resume part out of it. You're like, I want to go learn Rust. So you go build a project in Rust, and then someone's like, yeah, but like, how are we going to monetize this? And it's like, dude, you're trying to learn Rust. You don't need to monetize everything you touch. If you can, power to you. That's amazing. But I don't think it's realistic, and I think it's a distraction from what your goal is. So my sort of closing note on the building software outside of work thing is like, keep your goals in mind. Your goals can shift, but be honest about them. Because if you're doing stuff that is not sort of pushing you in the direction of your goal, like, do you need to reevaluate your goals, or do you need to reevaluate what you're doing? Okay. So overall, What's going on? My chat's saying it needs to connect. Am I still here? I hope I'm still here. Overall, I think for building stuff outside of work, I'm a really big fan of it. Let me switch over to this screen. I'll put my little... There I am. Chat still doesn't come back. Yeah, I'm a big fan of building stuff outside of work. I've been doing it. Yeah, I'm biased in this sense that I've always been the kind of person interested in building stuff outside of work, but I realize it's not for everyone. Some people are happy to do their software development at work, and they go, cool. Like I'm done my day job, and that's it. And there's nothing wrong with that. I just happen to also like it outside of work too. I love building stuff. So that's mostly it for the stream today, folks. I'm recovering from a flu, and I think I'm almost in the clear. My nose is still not great. But this is the newsletter article. So it's at weekly.devleader.ca. I'm just going to put it into the chat again. Substack, folks, you're already there. So I'm just sharing the newsletter article for folks that want to see it. I mentioned at the beginning of the stream that the live streams are generally based on the newsletter articles. Unless folks have different requests they want me to write about or do live streams about, and I, will separate them, that's fine. But you don't need to subscribe to it. If you like the live stream, you like the format, you like hanging out here asking questions or answering people's questions, check out the newsletter so you can see. It's if you go to the site, it's like a blog post, right? So you can just read it there and see what the topic is. Otherwise, let's go through some stuff. I'm just going to refresh a couple of these. I got some other tabs to pull over. I just got to refresh them all. Cool. Give me one sec here. You can tell I'm not a pro streamer. Okay. Cool. Let's pull this back. So this is my main YouTube channel, DevLeader. I think most folks that know me probably know me either from my YouTube channel or from LinkedIn. But DevLeader has C# programming tutorials, so a lot of .NET stuff. And then I am trying to layer in a bunch of, building with AI so you can see how I'm, writing software. So if there's AI related tutorials that you would like to see, please feel free to ask. I'm trying to do a better job this year playing with more tools. So this weekend, I was using Claude Code. I've used Claude Code before. Actually, one of my most popular videos on YouTube is using Claude Code. And so I was using Claude Code, and then my limits ran out, and I was already kind of in this flow of like building in the command line in the terminal. So I got the Copilot command line. And so that was my first experience this weekend with the Copilot command line. And if I'm very transparent with you, the very beginning, I was like, this is terrible. And then I realized it's the models. I was picking models that were just not delivering. Once I got past like these GPT Codex models and just went back to Opus, I think GPT 5.1 usually works pretty well for me. But with Opus 4.5, I was back to flying. And so, yeah, I'll publish those videos when my editor gets them done. But made a lot of good progress this past weekend and got to learn about Copilot CLI. I really liked using it. I feel like out of the box, the features are less than Claude in terms of extensibility. I'm not actually sure. I think obviously Claude has a lot of momentum behind it, but I'm not really like a terminal kind of developer at all. But it was really handy for going back and forth, kind of in like a pseudo planning mode. But that video, there's 3 videos. They'll come out on this channel, DevLeader. I have another one, DevLeader Path to Tech. So Baron Bites was asking about resume reviews. DevLeader Path to Tech is where I do my resume reviews. I have to catch up on some of them. Yeah, this past week was not good for recording anything because I had the flu. And then DevLeader Podcast is where some of you are watching this from. I split my podcasts out from my main channel to help the algorithm. I don't know how long that's been now. I would say the result has been absolutely no difference. So lots of extra work for zero benefit, but hey, that's social media for you. So I interview other software engineers on this channel and then the live stream. And then Code Commute. I have a lot of fun on Code Commute. Code Commute, I'll put that in the chat as well. Sorry, Substack folks. This is why I said until Substack fixes their live streaming on the browser, I can't do anything. So if you want a better experience until they fix it, head over to YouTube and you can see the stream. But Code Commute, I know there's a bunch of people that come over to the live stream from Code Commute, and I appreciate you being here. Code Commute topics generally are what I write about in the newsletter. So the live streams as a side effect end up becoming topics that come from Code Commute. So you can see this one here, how and why to code more outside of your day job. This was a submitted question, I think. And came the newsletter. Now it's a live stream. And I think before last week we did Fang interview reality check. So we walked through what big tech interviews look like. And that's it, folks. The last thing I have to show off is, of course, Brand Ghost, which is what I build outside of work. This is my outside of work coding project. This is the one I've been working on for a few years now as I build out all of my social media. We had a pretty cool announcement at the beginning of the week. We partnered with Monty Mader, who is a social media influencer. And so we are doing, with her social media team, they're using BrandGo. So we'll be partnering with them, getting their feedback, enabling them to post all of her social media content, which is super cool for us. We're super excited. I even got to sneak my own face on here. We got John Vandeveer. He's also a tech creator. You'll see him on LinkedIn. And he's big on TikTok, posts a lot on LinkedIn. He's posts a lot on a lot of platforms because brand goes. So John's pretty awesome. And then Timo Kulin, he's an awesome guy as well. He is, I don't know, he started content creation not too long ago. And like really it's been awesome to see him grow because I think he's someone who took it to heart where we were like, hey, like, you just got to be consistent, man. Just like, it doesn't happen overnight unless you have some weird viral TikTok and you're like I don't know, overnight social media sensation. Like, it doesn't happen to people though. So keep showing up, keep making content. Timo's done an awesome job of that. So we got a few people highlighted at the top. But yeah, Brand Ghost is what I build. It's in C#, of course. So the whole back end is in .NET. We have a TypeScript front end, which is why I don't touch the front end because it's not C#. Just kidding. Runs in Azure. Yeah, it's a lot of fun. And I have, I work with Copilot to build a lot of features. It's really helping me get stuff done. So yeah. This is what I build. It is, we've changed up our pricing and tiers and stuff. It's still free to use. So it's like instead of having a time limited trial, we just made it like a permanent trial. It's just, you have a limited number of feature uses every month, but it's free. So you can just check it out if you want to post stuff on social media. Because one of the questions I had over the past week was, hey, if I work in tech and I want to start posting stuff online, do you have any advice? They mentioned that they were considering doing it as a side hustle. So I tried to share some perspective on that. That'll be on Code Commute because that's where it was asked. And then, of course, I mentioned Brand Ghost as part of that. So thank you so much for being here, folks. I got to schedule all my Code Commute videos for the week. I got a full week coming up. And then I'll get my videos for Dev Leader sent over to the editor and should be a good one. So I hope to see you all next Monday, 7 p.m. Pacific, same time, same place. And we finish right on time. Look at that. It's crazy. Okay, folks, see you later. Have an awesome week.